Hi, welcome back to A Man in the Sea of Lies here from Humber Marshes here in South Etobicoke. Took a bit of a break with the war and all that stuff. I didn't post anything of significance politically lately, but things have piled up sort of for me, you know. And the main thing is, I don't want to get into I have a separate video about the war and you know whatever Donald Trump's trying to accomplish. So I'm not gonna get into that here on this video. But we're so shallow in our political commentary on our media, and we so it's such a knee jerk reaction every single time. Going back to the Olympics, Winter Olympics, when Canada lost to the U.S. team in the finals. As soon as Austin Matthews came back to Toronto, she was ambushed by reporters, asking him about his visit to the White House. I mean, the dude he's American, but Canadian media they want to try to get an angle. They want to have a feel or where Austin Matthews stands politically. He's a freaking hockey player, for crying out loud. But predictably, I knew it. Everybody else knew it. That as soon as he comes back, he's going to be asked about the White House visit and Donald Trump. Especially that the women's team, Olympic U.S. Olympic team, refused to go see the president after they also won gold in the Olympics. So now it's sort of turning into such a circus now. This Donald Trump thing, that if anybody makes any statement, public statement anywhere, whether it's politicians or the talking heads on TV or the radio commentators, pundits, he's sort of obligated now to mention Donald Trump. It doesn't matter what you're talking about. Whether you're talking about global politics or domestic policy or economy, talking about Donald Trump is mandatory now, right? It's consuming our collective psyche, our Canadian collective psyche. To the point now where even Polyev had to take a stance now, right? So he had to get into the game because there is so much political capital in mentioning Donald Trump that even a conservative leader like Polyev feels that he must distance himself from the Americans by blasting Donald Trump. Although he was a little more reasonable when he got into the detail. He wasn't like opening elbows up kind of Carney approach. But he did criticize the U.S. and Donald Trump, and I firmly believe that the conservatives really don't want to get into power in Canada, because they're doing everything they can to stay being an opposition party. Because the going is tough right now, but it's just gonna get worse now, right? Especially with our economy tanking on all fronts. All economic indicators point to a decline in our economy, living standards, and stuff like that. But the media still runs cover for Carney. They do everything they possibly can to cover up his mismanagement of our economy. He's been in power for over a year. All the economic indicators point to a decline: unemployment, deficits, inflation. And I've mentioned this before, but Carney, he doesn't like answering tough questions at all. He gets lost whenever something comes up in, with Canadian media. It doesn't happen often that any serious questions are asked of Mark Carney. So in a way, he's perfect Canadian prime minister. You know, lofty ideas, lots of talk, little substance. All the usual talking points are repeated over and over and over again, and nothing has been done really. You know, and this all is related to how deeply the hatred for the Americans is woven into the fabric of Canadian society, whether it's political or otherwise. We just love to hate Americans. We define ourselves by hating the United States of America. I mentioned this before, but for a guy like me who grew up elsewhere in the world, I got here. I was kind of surprised by this. How much Canadians want to distance themselves from the Americans, because I traveled to the U.S. as well, and to me, the way people live their lives in the U.S. and in Canada is very similar. There's a lot more similarities than differences to me. And just briefly on the war, I said I wouldn't mention it, but briefly, there's no real analysis in the media at all. All the reports that you see, all the news that you hear on the radio and what you watch on television in Canada, it's all so shallow. There's no analysis of any sort at all. There's no bringing up the history of conflicts in the Middle East. Nothing. All you hear in the news is how that the war is causing high oil prices and gasoline prices at the stations. I don't know how we don't see that the majority of our natural resources are going south to the United States, whether it's natural gas or oil. And then our manufacturing stuff like that, it's all 3/4 of it goes down south to the US. I've talked about this before. We want to distance ourselves from the US. Okay, sure. We could, but it's going to take a decade or two before we can. And in the meantime, what? We lost 84,000 jobs in January and February in Canada. Food prices are up. In January, food prices in Canada were up 7.3%. Now, gasoline prices are up, so this is going to hurt us big time. And we were loaded with natural resources, and we're doing squat about it. We make it impossible for energy companies to build infrastructure in order to process and store and ship our resources, right? We're selling our stuff at discounted prices, and everything's going to the US pretty much. So, but you still have people like, for example, Vashi Capello. She's my favorite now. Because she's this tough, strong woman that, asks our politicians really tough questions. But to me, it's all the same, mumbling all the time. It's very predictable. So, commentators like Vashi Capello, they design their narrative around this kind of thing, just to sideline the real issues that Canada is facing, Canadian economy especially. And they wave this, they build this narrative. Like last week, I heard her say that, as the energy prices are rising, that's gonna bring in bring up food prices as well, right? Because everything has to be transported, right? So the higher the energy prices, the higher the goods, especially food. Food has to be delivered fresh immediately to stores. It's not like furniture or something. You can store it forever, or even though it costs money to store stuff, but still. So now our inflation is going up, and probably interest rates soon are going to follow, and our housing market is tanking big time. Our manufacturing stagnating. We're losing hundreds of thousands of car exports. We used to build a lot more cars. I mentioned this before. We used to build a lot more cars here in Southern Ontario. And most of these exports went to the US. And now nobody talks about that either. But now the Japanese brands who assemble cars in Southern Ontario, they're also hinting that, if we're gonna get in trouble with our exports, like Canadian-built Japanese cars being exported to the US, if we're gonna get in trouble with that, they're gonna stop investing. They already said that. And just like the American brands, car manufacturing plants shutdowns are inevitable, as it's already been happening with the US brands. But we're buying it. I am not sure why we're buying it. I don't see an exit strategy for this narrative at all. We're gonna continue to destroy our economy for our like some sort of a grandstanding political fodder, because Canadians are buying this narrative, right? It doesn't matter what happens. We're gonna blame everything on Donald Trump here, and damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, kind of thing. It's saddening, and I don't know. Nobody's offering any alternatives at all. Poilievre, on one hand, he knows. Like, I've seen some interviews with him from outside of Canada, interviews, and like in a couple of Australian and British channels. Well, I only saw one interview, but I saw commentary from Australia as well. But he knows exactly what's going on. Like, he when he's asked tough questions, he's got the answers. But he's not saying the same things here in Canada at press conferences or his speeches or whatever. He's just selling the same bullshit that everybody else is selling, with a slight twist. He's leaving some space there for an exit. But that's not strong leadership. What we need is a politician here in Canada, sort of like Donald Trump. It sounds crazy, but we need a counter-revolutionary guy who's going to, offer us some alternatives. I'm not saying he should be doing things the way Donald Trump is doing things, but somebody better start talking the truth to Canadians.